All right, over to you. All right. Okay. So, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the invitation uh, for me to come and inflict sermon or brochure or whatever on all of you. I'd like to share with you some thoughts on a familiar topic, but maybe coming from an unfamiliar angle. That is, of course, this week in Parashas Vayera. Certainly in my day, when you prepared for the Bar Mitzvah test at Wobegon House, it used to it almost you had to prepare a certain number of chapters of Chumash, and one of them was always the kid. That was always chosen because it's such a an important story, and also that the translation actually is not that difficult. But uh, each year, one sees new insights into this. One of the things that interested me many years ago, I heard some lectures from my friend and much lamented principal at one time of a Jews college, Rabbi Dr. Irving Jacobs. And those of you that remember him will know that his passion was for the Midrash, to understand what the Midrash is talking about. The Midrash is an interesting text because it appeals to children. In fact, at first reading some of the stories and the things that seem very childish, but actually, if you go into it in some depth, you understand, and especially if you understand the historical context in which the Midrash was produced during the post-temple, largely just after the destruction, Jerusalem, the temple, and the terrible situation of the Jews that remained. I mean, according to Josephus, I think about 1 million Jews were slaughtered by the Romans, and those that were left in a situation where the early Christians were saying to them, basically, you've been cast off by your God. Old Testament is old news. Now there's a New Testament, there's a new religion, and but they went to pains to try and bring people on board by a survey of the current customs and religions that were going on, and they kind of incorporated them into their way of thinking. And I want to show how the Kedah was basically hijacked by them, and also, as we'll see, by the Muslims as well. So hopefully we'll have time to do both things. So those of you here have got a text in front of you. I'm going to whiz through this fairly quickly. Those of you who are seeing this online, hard luck, you haven't got a text to look into. I'm very sorry about that, but I hope you'll still be able to get something from this presentation. So as we get into the story, we see in source 1 that Vayikach Avraham es Adsei Ha'olah, that Avraham took the wood for the burnt offering, Vayosem al Yitzchak beno, and he placed it on Yitzchak his son, Vayikach v'yodah ha'eshes ha'macheles, he took with him a source of fire and a knife, and they went together. And so if you look, the Bereshis Rabbah comes in on this straight away. Source number 2, when it says Vayikach Avram es Atzei Olah, that he took the wood for the burnt offering, the comment, the Midrash says, Kizeh shehu toin saluvo b'kesefo. It's like this person who is going to be crucified. Apparently, the Romans used to get to carry your own crucifix, kind of thing, the place where it was going to be placed before the person was tortured. So this was a common torture execution method in the post-Churban period. And this would have been familiar to the people who lived at the time that the Midrash is being compiled. So the Midrash is really like sermonettes that are being presented to the people there. So in source 3, so we see by Yoma Yitzchak el Avraham Aviv. So Yitzchak said to Abraham his father, Vayoma, and he said, Ovi, Daddy. Vayoma hineni v'ni, and Abraham replies, I'm here, I am my son. Vayoma, he said, Hinei ha'esh ha'eitzim, here is the fire and the wood for the burnt offering, but where is the lamb for the offering? Vayoma Avraham. So Avraham replied, Hashem will provide um, the lamb for the offering, my son. So have a look here, the next little piece in number 4. So this is the Satan trying to persuade Avram and Yitzchak not to go through with this ordeal. So it's the Saba Saba Avod Ben Shenidn L'chol L'mei Shana. This son, which has been given to you at the age of 100 years old, Atah Holech L'Shachato, you're going to go and slaughter him. So Avram replies, Amalei, Amanos Cain, I'm prepared to do this. Excuse me. If God tests you even beyond this with further trials, are you able to withstand that? He says, yeah, I'm whatever. I will be happy to go along with whatever God asks of me. And then he said, so the Satan says, well, tomorrow, so the God will say to you, Shofech Domat, you're a murderer, right? Chayev shechafta doma shel biri, you're on your chayev for murder because you slaughtered your son. You poured out the blood of your son. Omalei. So he said to him, Amanos Cain, I'm prepared to go ahead with it. The Cayman shlo choil mimenu klum. So since that, after all this, the Satan realized he isn't going to dissuade Abraham from going through with the trial. Mr. Yitzhak. Amalei, he says to him, Barod alufta, he says, you, the son of a miserable, and alufta is a miserable woman. This is a reference to Sarah, who had been unable to have children for these decades, and who fasted many times to merit becoming pregnant. You're going to be sacrificed. Amalei. So Yitzchak says to him, Amanos Cain, I'm prepared to go through with this. Amalei. And he says, so the Sultan said, Im Cain, Kol Osem Haparguzoyos She Osos Imchod. Bear in mind all the things that she would have prepared for you. But these things, all the good things, that the Ishmael Anecha debase a Yerusa, that in fact said what will happen is that the Yerusha, this inheritance, will be for Yishmael, the hated one, right, the one who has been driven away. So don't you consider this outcome to be unjust? Amalei, so Yitzchak replied, Amanos came, I'm prepared to go ahead with it. Amalei, so he said, sorry. Im Cain, does none of these considerations enter your heart? So and so the Midrash goes on to say how so Yitzchak turns to Abraham, his father, and he says, Ovi, my father. And this expression is repeated in the Lama Ovi baseball. I mean, why does the Torah record the fact that he turns to his father and says, my father, twice? Kadeshis Mali Alov Rachman, in order to fill Abraham with a sense of Rachman, with mercy. So Vayome Hinei Ha'esh Va'etzim, and he said to him, behold, here's the fire and the wood. Omale Abraham Yitzchak. He said that the man may Hashem turn his anger to the Satan who is troubling you, and take it out on him. So Mikol Mokem, nevertheless, however, as for you, trust in Hashem and be reassured that Elokim Yireh Sepli, that Hashem will provide for you the lamb, my son. The Iblav, and if Hashem doesn't provide the lamb, you will be the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. So I highlighted it in the text that the conjunction of these words can be read a number of ways. Hashem will provide the land for the burnt offering, but if not, Haser la'ola b'ni, you are going to be the lamb for the offering. Vayechu shnehem yachtov, and then it first finishes off. They went with themselves. They went together. Zeh la'akod, this one to be to bind. V'zeh le'aked, and this one to be bound. Zeh lishkod, this one to do the slaughtering, Abraham. V'zeh lishochet, and the other one is going to be slaughtered. And so we see at this point that that Yitzchak knows the plot, but he's willing. He's going to be a willing participant. By the way, the Midrash exploits a play on words because in the language of the Eastern Roman Empire, the word "seh" means you. You will be the lamb for the burnt offering. We go a little further. Vayishlach Avraham is yodo. The Avram stretches out his arm. Vayikach es ha'ma'acheles l'shchotos b'no. He takes hold of the knife to slaughter his son. Says the Midrash. Well, this is the time of Yonason this time. But Oshit Avraham yas yadei unasev yas sakina lemeches yas berech. He stretched out his hand, took the knife to shecht his son. And he answered, but Yitzchak said, La avoy to his father, Kfos yod yasi yoos, de lo afarches min sa'arod nafshi. He said, bind me down tightly, that I shouldn't struggle out of fear for my life. And why not? But because if I'm struggling, I'm moving around while you're doing the shechita, it will invalidate the shechita, and it will invalidate the sacrifice. The Avram is startling, but the eyes of Avram are looking into the eyes of Yitzchak. The Yitzchak and the eyes of Yitzchak is startling the Malchim Aroma are looking above the angels above. One is there to slaughter, and the other is to be slaughtered. The nachas lo me'akev, and he's not going to refuse to be sheft. This one is not refusing to sheft him. With misnaches pashit savre, the one who's bound to be slaughtered, he extends his neck, so it makes it easier for him to do the shechita. So at this stage, we see that Yitzchak is not resisting the role of martyr, and in a way he becomes superior to Abraham. He's not merely a co-hero. Remember that we say that the Hashem tested Abraham, but we refer to the test as Akedas Yitzchak. He is the hero of the story in a way. Now, the classic ending is no, right? The trial is stopped at the crucial moment, and Avraham and Yitzchak return home. But what a lot of people don't know is that the rabbis of the Midrash report an alternative to the story. So if you look at source 7, which is a Mechilta to Rabbi Yishmael, on Parashas Bo, another stick. So in Parashas Bo, we're given instructions about the Korban Pesach, and the people to take the lamb, to slaughter it, and put the blood on the lintel of the doorposts of their houses, so that the angel of death will pass over. And it says, that Hashem is going to see the Roy Saddam. I think it should be Roisa Saddam. The angel of death will see the blood, and he'll pass over that house. Says the Mechilta, Roahu Dama Kedosa Shel Yitzchak. What he's going to see is the blood that was shed at the binding of Isaac. Shne'emar, as it says, at the end of the Akedah, Vayikra Avram Shem Makamahu Hashem Yireh, Abraham called the name of that place, Hashem will see. Ukaseh, but he brings a pasuk in Divrei Hayomim, which in the Book of Chronicles, Vayishlach Elokim Malach Yerushalayim, that the Hashem was going to send a malach to destroy Jerusalem, Hashkis to destroy Jerusalem. Then as he was to destroy it, Ra Hashem. Hashem saw, it doesn't tell you what he saw, but and he pulled back from the evil, the badness he was going to do Yerushalayim. So Ma Ra'os is the Medrash. What did he see? Ra Dama Kedosa Shel Yitzchak. He saw the blood from the sacrifice of Isaac. Shenema Yira Lo Aser La'olov B'ni. So again, the word Yira is, which we saw before in the text. He says Hashem's going to look at that. So it seems that from this Mechilta that actually Avraham went through with the thing and shechted Yitzchak. In source 8, and by the way, he is going to atone for the future. Seeing the blood of Yitzchak is going to atone for the people of Yerushalayim in the future. So the blood of the sacrifice is going to atone for future descendants, which maybe is a familiar theme to you. In number 8, I'm whizzing through this because there's no time short. So it says the Shibbolei Leket brings the following thing. Kevan Shenitzal Avraham Me'ur Kasim. When Avraham, as we know, was as a young man, was thrown into the furnace in Kasdim, and he was saved from there. When the angels saw this, Hoskul Malachi Ashoris, the Malachi Ashoris ministering angels said as follows: Baruch Atah Hashem, bless you are God, Mogen Avraham, who protects the shield of Avraham. Kishaneh Kad Yitzchak Alvina Al Gabe Mizbeach, and when later Yitzchak our father was on the Mizbeach, ready to be sacrificed. But the adds, Vana'af said Deshem, and he was turned into ash. V'hoya aforo mushlach al harmia, and the ashes were sprinkled all over Haramaria, right? What happened? Miyad hevi HaKadosh Baruch Hu tal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought some, magical dew. The Sechaya Osa, and that revived him. Miyad, and straight away, Posku Malachi Ashores, the Malachi Ashores replied, and they said, Baruch Atah Hashem L'chaim Mesim. Blessed are you, O Lord, who revives the dead. So you see, in this version of the story, Yitzchak is killed and he's resurrected. So that may be a familiar thing that comes to mind. So now, the question also arises: when did the Akedah actually happen? So, according to an early source, I haven't brought this on the sheet, from the Book of Jubilees, which is thought to have been authored around about 150 BCE, so it's before the destruction of the temple. This is a book which recounts Jewish history as a succession of Jubilee, period of 50 years and so on. And it was highly regarded by the early Christians. And a text of this was found intact in the Qumran caves, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls and everything. However, the Book of Jubilees is not included in the Jewish canon. Now, according to the Book of Jubilees, the Akedah took place on the 15th of Nisan, right, which is first day Pesach. Thereafter, it records that Abraham celebrated a feast for 7 days in successive years to celebrate the anniversary of the Akedah, which seems in some way to have prefigured Pesach. Now, we have an alternative tradition that the Akedah took place on Rosh Hashanah, and that's why where the custom arose for us to read the Akedah as part of the Torah readings for Rosh Hashanah. But the interesting thing is this: if you look there's a Mishnah in Maseches Megillah. This is source 10 on the sheet. For some reason, 9 disappeared. I'm not quite sure how that happened. So the Mishnah Megillah recounts the various Torah portions that are read on different festivals during the year. So it tells us, but Pesach, Korean, but Parashas Murders. On Pesach, we read the Parashas Murders. That's Shor of Chesed from Parshas Emma, which goes through the list of all the festivals of the year. Shel Teres Kahanim, which is in Vayikra. But Atzeres on Shavuos, Shiva Shavuos, we read the parasha which deals with the counting of the Omer leading up to Shavuos. For Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Hashanah, what do we read? B'chodesh HaShavi, Be'echad HaChodesh. That's referring to the offerings that are offered up on Rosh Hashanah and Parshas Pinchas. B'Yom HaKippurim, on Yom Kippur, Achrimos, that survives. We still read the Achrimos on Yom Kippur. B'Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag, on the first day of Sukkot, Korin b'Parshas Modo, Shabbat Torah's Kahalim, same with Shor Chesed, is the Torah portion. Uv'Sha'ar Kol Yemos HaChag b'Korbanos HaChag. The other days of the Festival of Sukkot, we read about the offerings that were offered up throughout the Festival of Sukkot. So you'll note that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, no mention of the Akedah whatsoever, right? Only the Korbanos, only the Parsha of the Korbanos that are read on Rosh Hashanah. So this would seem to give a force to the idea that the Akedah didn't take place on Rosh Hashanah, took place on what we now call Pesach, as recorded by the Book of Jubilee. So how come we do all this in Rosh Hashanah? So the source 10 that we just read, sorry. So how was the Akedah worked by the early Christians? So they had a problem. They had Yoshki, who they claimed was their Messiah. They died. So they adopted a known theme, i.e., this alternative version of the binding of Isaac, and they adapted this imagery to their ideology. We have the Paschal Lamb becomes the Lamb of God. According to the tradition, Jesus is crucified on Pesach, right? Last Supper is Seder night, and resurrected 3 days later. And it seems that the repositioning of Chazal to link the Akedah to Rosh Hashanah was likely a later development, which was to distance it, to distinguish it from the Christian narrative, which centers it around Easter. Then finally, the last source I want to bring to your attention, this is of course in the filter, Rabbi Yishmael, Parshas Yisro. So in the Ten Commandments, Rabbi Nosson, who is a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, he's once the Torah says, "Va'oseh chesed la'avim," Hashem does kindness to the 1,000 generations. La'ohavai u'lashomrei mitzvosai, to those who love me and those who keep my commandments. Who are these? Says Rabbi Nosson. Elu Yisrael. These are the Jews. Shehem Yoshavim be'Eretz Yisrael, the ones who live in Eretz Yisrael. V'nosnim nafsham ala mitzvos, and they give up their lives for the mitzvahs, because in the post-temple era and in the the Hadrianic persecutions and so on, if you were caught keeping mitzvahs, you got executed. That's what happened to you. So Malacha Yotze lehareg, what is it to you that one who is being sent out to be killed, that's to be decapitated, I think, al shemalti esmi, because I circumcised my son. Circumcision was forbidden. For you who's going to be killed by burning, al shekarosi pater, because I read in the Torah. Or you who's going to be crucified, al she'achalti hamatzah, because I ate the matzah on Pesach. Or the one who's going to be flogged to death. This Arafargal are some kind of cat o' nine tails or something horrible by which they flog people. Yes, I love, because I took the lulav. Anybody caught with doing these things was put to death. And the Romans sent people out checking of it. I remember actually Rabbi Jacobs mentioning this thing. We say that right early on in the service, we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right in the prophets. Then we've got the Shema said in its entirety in the main part of the service, and on the Shabbos at Musaf, Shema Yisrael is put into the Kedusha. Why was that? Because so the theory is, and it probably makes sense, the Romans sent round looking to see what people were doing. So if you were going to be caught at the beginning of the service, you'd be able to get your Shema in somewhat later in the davening and so on. These sort of things. It was a terrible time for Jews to be living if they wanted to practice their religion. So Amar Makos Oile Ben Yoter. This is a quote from Zechariah. These wounds that you have between your hands. Well, how did you get these? For Omar, and he'll say, person will answer, Shehu Casey, base may have. I was wounded in the house of my friends. In other words, I think is that you're persecuted for being shown to practice your Judaism. But Makkah's Elu, these punishments, Goramuli, they caused me le ohev la'avi shavashumayim, to be that I will be beloved to my Father in heaven, because Avraham is referred to as Zera, was it Zera Ohavi, that he is the Hashem refers to him as the seed of my beloved one. There's no other character in the whole of Tanakh who's referred to as God's beloved. And so martyrdom becomes an expression of love for God, and the role models are Avraham and Yitzchak. Rabbi Nosson, who's the author mentioned in this Mechilta, is a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva, who was the one who expounded the pasuk V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha. You should serve the Lord your God with all your heart, with your Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov, u'v'chol nafshecha, and with all your soul. Afilu no telis nafshecha. You have to be prepared to lay down your life for Hashem as a martyr, and that indeed happened to him. He's one of the Asar Haruge Malchus that we read of in the Musaf repetition meter on Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Akiva was killed because he taught Torah publicly. So I want to just mention there that so this is how the Christians took our narrative or a version of our narrative and worked it to suit their particular designs. Now, I want to finish off with an anecdote. So it was a long time ago, it must have been about 15 or more years ago. I worked in the office of the chief rabbi, and Chief Rabbi Sachs said to me one morning, "We've got this meeting of the rabbis and the imams tomorrow at St. John's Wood Synagogue. How many rabbis are coming?" I said, "What are we talking about? Don't tell me about meeting." He says, No, we've got to. It's been set up out of one of these interfaith organizations. And I said, "Well, I don't know anybody that's going to this." He said, "Okay, get on the phone and get some people." And so we phoned around. I think I managed to get about 10 rabbis up. And they brought in 2 or 3 of the top imams in London. The one from the mosque in St. John's Wood, in Regent's Park, who's got a connection with Dime Binstock. And I remember particularly there was the one who was the head of the Somali community in the East End. I think they took over Rectory Square Shul and turned it into a mosque. And they have thousands of people spilling out onto the streets every day to daven mincha. It's a massive community. Anyway, so this fellow gets up and he opens the meeting, and we're all sitting there. And he says, we believe in Torah. We believe in Tehillim. We believe in Moshe. He goes right to the whole thing. Obviously, the bottom line is we believe it is Muhammad. So I remember Rabbi Jeffrey Hyman sitting next to me, and he always opens his mouth. He's got something to say. So he said, yes. He said, look, you say that you believe in Torah, but in the Torah it says that God gave Israel to the Jews. So he says, no, we believe in Torah, but not your Torah. So now, according to them, it wasn't Yitzchak that was the Abiyakait, it was Yishmael. And they were a whole completely different narrative. So what we see with these supersessional religions, which is the title of this really, is that Christianity came along and they said to the Jews, basically, you've been cast off, your temple's destroyed, you've been put into exile, God has forsaken you. Now it's Christianity that is the Israel, and of course according to Christian theology, we shouldn't be here. 2,000 years later, have flourishing Jewish communities. We're not millions and millions and millions of people, but there should still be Jewish people and a Jewish state in the land of Israel is totally contrary to all early Christian basic theology. And when they went through in the Crusades to basically ostensibly to knock out the Muslims who were trying to convert everybody over to their religion, but as they went through Europe on the way, there were pogrom after pogrom in Jewish communities. Do you know? I wonder. Do you know how many complete manuscripts of the Talmud exist today? Handwritten manuscripts of the Talmud. Not one. Not one. Our version, the Vilna Shas, is a compilation of there was some in Germany, and there's an Oxford manuscript, and there are various bits they've got around the world, and from that they've put together a complete. But because when they went through, and the Germans did the same thing, emptied out all the books and things from the shul and piled them up in the town square and burnt them. So that's the Christians did to us while they were going around bashing up the Muslims. Muslims, again, it's, as far as they're concerned, everything that's gone before is nonsense. Muhammad is the true prophet, and anybody that believes in anything else is an infidel. And you die by the sword, or you accept Islam. That's what we're up against, I'm afraid. But the point is that both of these religions latched onto things that were there already before, which people were familiar with, and they hijacked it for their own purpose. That's really the point of the talk.
Right, so that's very interesting, very timely. Okay, I will say goodbye to those on Zoom and finish off the proceedings here. Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia Omer Rasav,